Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you very much, everybody, joining with your very familiar brothers and sisters in the Dharma, having each other's company and being able to spend some time reflecting in these teachings is a very good thing to do. So I rejoice all of your dedication, discipline, and it supports everyone, and particularly helps me to have something to prepare, something to do, and then reflect on and think on and so on. Okay, so we're going to do the refuge and four immeasurables as usual. Please bring your heart, mind, thoughts, prayers, and maybe including some people who have recently passed away or are in not good space. And the world is definitely have its own everyday share of sufferings, be it natural disasters or man-made disasters or selfishly created reactions and overreactions. So let's do the prayers. Remember the refuge. Remember bodhicitta and commitment to practice them as we say them, joining our hands together and say the prayer willfully, thoughtfully, and joyfully. Thank you. Oyenda Buddha Dharma Asanga Aitere Videla Dhamma Vajra Adiyendala Ajare Buddha Vajra Enda Buddha Dhamma Asanga Ajare Videla Dhamma Vajra Adiyendala Ajare Buddha Vajra Enda Buddha Dhamma Asanga Ajare Videla Dhamma Vajra Adiyendala Ajare Buddha Vajra. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never part from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment and those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never part from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment and those near and far. May all beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never from the happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell equanimity, free from her judgment and aversion to the near and far, according to the intelligent and brilliant position of it, where the Yajanda Dharma Agrelo and Gama Vego. So we have covered all the 7 Vajra points, but now we are looking at the 5th and last chapter, which is the benefit of looking and studying and learning about these 7 Vajra points. The Vajra points being Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, the Buddha nature, and these first 4 Vajra points are covered in the first chapter. And then the enlightenment is if the 5th Vajra points, and the 6th Vajra points is enlightened activities. So it's qualities of the Buddhahood, and then the 7th one is enlightened activities. So those are all covered in the first 4 chapters, and now we're looking at the last chapter, which is talking about benefit of being exposed to these teachings, particularly Buddha nature and the enlightenment and so on. So that's the remaining part of the text for next 3 nights, including tonight. But before moving on, I would like to complete last week's question, where I think we were listing the 18 works, 18 great textbooks, which I listed most of them, but I said I will bring the full text. So I got the list of the texts here, the 18 texts, and I'm going to go over them just briefly. So these 18 texts are this notion of 18 texts, or Shungchen Chopye in Tibetan, is largely a Sakya Tibetan Buddhist tradition. In other lineages, they call 5 volumes or 6 volumes. So if the 6 volumes are elaborated, then what does each of the volume contains? Altogether, there are 18 texts. So I'm going to go over the identifying which are the 18 texts, out of which what we are studying, the Uttaratantra, of course, features very high on the list. There are 6 volumes. First volume consists of Paramita. They call Paramita as perfection of wisdom. These are 5 texts attributed to Maitreya and Asanga. The first one is Abhisamayalankara, which is Ornament of Clear Realization. That is the most longest and comprehensive versified meter writing on the subject of perfection of wisdom, which is the first of the 5, what they call 5 texts of Maitreya. But they are all are under the heading of perfection of wisdom. And then second one is Mahayana Sutralankara. The first one is Abhisamayalankara. Second one is Mahayana Sutralankara. Mahayana Sutralankara is ornament of many Mahayana sutras. So that is again the second most important text by Asanga and Maitreya. So those are root texts. And then the third one is Madhyanta Vibhanga. Madhyanta Vibhanga is a text, third text by Maitreya and Asanga called Discriminating, the Middle and Extreme. This is very Madhyanta Vibhanga talks a lot about the 5 hindrances of the meditation and 8 antidotes of karma body meditation. So this is more talking about how to enter into the meditative state to realize the perfection of wisdom by learning to allay the 5 obstacles and applying the 8 antidotes. So that's the third text. And the fourth one is Dharmata Vibhanga. So this is a much smaller of the 5 texts by the same Maitreya and Asanga. it's on the subject of ultimate truth. Then the fifth one is the Uttaratantra, this very text we've been studying, Uttaratantra, or I've been subtitling it, 7 Vajra points. Uttaratantra means, Uttara means really supreme or highest, Tantra means continuum, so highest continuum or supreme continuum. This is what we are studying. So these 5 texts are sometimes called 5 texts of Maitreya, but in the classical text they call it perfection wisdom, phyin. So that's most people will spend 2 years studying only just the first text. So usually 4 or 5 years that whole just study of perfection wisdom. So that's the first volume. Then the second volume is a pramana. Second volume is all about logic, Buddhist logic. This comprises three texts. First one is Pramana Samuccaya. Pramana Samuccaya is by Dignanga. Dignanga is Asanga's brother. Asanga's younger brother, by different mother, but different father, but true same mother. This is all on Buddhist logic. And then the 7th text is called Certainty of Logic, Pramana Vinishya. Vinishya is another Buddhist text on valid cognition or logical text called by Dharmakirti. So Dharmakirti and Dignanga are the 2 great luminaries on Buddhist, some people call syllogism or logic. So these are the two texts primarily on Buddhist logic. Buddhist logic means prior to the Buddhist logic, there were logic in India. There were logic. Study of logic exists very strongly in India and also does exist in Western philosophy as well. But Buddhist two Buddhist teachers were Dignanga and Dharmakirti. And then on top of that, this being a Sakya monastic kind of curriculum, the 7th text is 7th text is by Sakya Pandita, Pramana Yukta Nidhi. Pramana Yukta Nidhi is the first ever Tibetan indigenous writing on Buddhist logic, and it is said to be one of the first Tibetan scholars' writing translated back into Sanskrit because of its prominence. Sakya Pandita studied the 2 other the syllogistic text of India, Dharmakirti and Dignanga, and he wrote his own. So that's called Pramana Yukta Nidhi. So those are the those are 3 texts in logic. So that takes care of first 8. Then the 3rd volume is on Vinaya. 3rd volume concerns with the Vinaya, and this has 2 texts. One is Pratimoksha Sutra. The Pratimoksha Sutra itself is very much a canonical text, but it is attributed to Gunaprabha, the one Indian master who probably would have compiled it, so Gunaprabha. And then the 9th one is Vinaya Mula Sutra. So these 2 Vinaya texts are studied last 2 years of the study. They don't do it early enough. They usually, because the young novices don't study them, so when they become fairly senior enough after 10, 15 years, depending to the speed of the study. So these are the 2 texts largely concerning the code of conduct of not only the monastics, but history and how these rules were introduced and implemented and executed. So those are the first 10 texts. So 3 volumes. Then the 4th volume is Abhidharma. The Abhidharma is Abhi means supreme, Dharma means phenomena. It's metaphysics. It's a study on even talking about cosmology, as well as psychology, as well as different state of meditative state, realizations of form REM, formless REM, various meditative states. So the Abhidharma has 2 texts. Abhidharma has 2 texts they call upper and lower. The upper means upper is the Abhidharma Kosha, and the lower is called Abhidharma Samuchaya. So Abhidharma Kosha is attributed to Vasubandhu. Sorry, I made a mistake earlier about Dignanga being Asanga's brother. Dignanga is not Asanga's brother. It's Vasubandhu who's Asanga's brother here. So Vasubandhu is the one who is author of Abhidharma Kosha. So that's called upper Abhidharma. The lower Abhidharma is Abhidharma Samuchaya. That's the 12th text. That's attributed to Asanga. So those two brothers are pillars of Abhidharma. And the Abhidharma is regarded completely agreeable text to the Theravadins. So there's nothing philosophical different between Theravada and Mahayana about the Abhidharma, about Buddhist cosmological system or different mind and mental factors and different meditative state according to Sutra. They're all agreeable. So these are totally, whether the Theravadins attribute to Vasubandhu and Asanga or not, I don't think they do. Maybe the names change, but identity is actually same, because for some reason Vasubandhu, there must be a time Vasubandhu really wanted to stay Theravadin if it wasn't the influence of his brother Asanga. So I don't know what happened, but they both have been very instrumental in putting these two texts, Abhidharma Kosha and Abhidharma Samuchaya. So you can see that lots of Theravadins have translated these texts, not this particular wording, but subject are exactly the same. Whether there's description of 18 hells or whether there's description of different meditative states of the 17 form realms and so on. All these things are very pan-Buddhist language and terminology, and they even call them Buddhist psychology. So they said, I've seen some books by Theravada called Buddhist psychology. They're all talking about Abhidharma. So that shows Abhidharma is discussing from cosmology to psychology, two different meditative states. So those are the two volumes attributed to Abhidharma. So we have Paramita, Paramita, 5 texts. Then we have the logic, we have 3 texts. And then we have Vinaya, 2 texts, 10. And then we have 2 texts on Abhidharma. So that's 12. Now the 5th volume is Madhyamika philosophy. Madhyamika philosophy has three texts. First is, I think mentioned last week, first is one by Nagarjuna, what you call Madhyamika Mula Karika. Mula Karika is the root text. That's the most difficult text, I think. It's got 26 chapters, and it has number of commentary by Baba Viveka and others. So therefore, and others, and then the second commentary on the second text on Madhyamika is by Chantakirti, Madhyamika Avatara, entering the middle way. So that's the second Madhyamika text. And third Madhyamika text is the 400 verses by Aryadeva, so Chatushataka. These 3 texts are Tsanjuk Hyusum. In Tibetan we call Tsanjuk Hyusum. Tsa is root, that's a mula, and Juk is avatara, that's Madhyamika avatar. Hi is the 4 means 400 words. So Tibetans, abbreviate because of monosyllabic language. It can Tsawa Sherab, Umanjukpa, Shigyapa. These 3 are called Tsanjuk Shisum. They abbreviate that. So these are respectively attributed to Nagarjuna, the Mula Madhyamika, and Madhyamika Avatara to Chantakirti, and then Chatushataka, the 400 verses to Aryadeva. So those are the 3 texts under the 5th volume on the middle way. So that's the 15, and then we have 3 more texts. The other texts are all Tibetan texts. So the other traditions don't have this 6th volume. They don't have the 6th volume. They call only 5 volumes. Shunkapo nga. They don't call Shunkapo Truk. Truk means 6 volumes. Why? Because these are unique texts by, for instance, first one is by Sakya Pandita. This is a classification of 3 vows. So Sakya Pandita wrote this famous text called Classification of 3 vows. Pratimoksha vows, Bodhisattva vows, Vajrayana vows. I don't think there is any specific indigenous Indian text on the subject. So that's why it shows how thinking of the Tibetan scholar like Sakya Pandita reached so much that he knew that we need to write a textbook on the three vows: Pratimoksha vow, Bodhisattva vow, and Vajrayana vows. So that's the 16th. 17th one is Bodhisattva Charyavatara. Bodhisattva Charyavatara is primarily a Bodhisattva vows. Yeah, it's all about Bodhisattva vows. It somewhat covers also Pratimoksha, but mainly is Bodhisattva's way of life. Bodhisattva's way of life. Then the 18th one is the Lamrim text. Lamrim text. The Lamrim text is written by Podon Chogle Namgyal. So Podon Chogle Namgyal is the founder of. He's actually a founder of Sakya, but later on he developed certain theoretical views that differed, and he became a follower of Podon. Podon becomes a sub school. Anyway, so he became he is among the first to pen down the textbook on Lamrim. I doubt Tsongkhapa's text was written before his, so therefore, so you will see. But the word Lamrim was coined by Atisha, yeah. Atisha wrote some text, but it was very small. Atisha's, lamp to the pathway enlightenment is very, very important, but it's very short. So it didn't become quite a feature as a textbook in the monasteries. Anyway, those 3 texts are counted as the 6th volume. So those are the 18 texts, books we were talking about. So you can see Bodhisattva's way of life is these days studied by everybody. So among the 18 textbooks, the 17th one is read and studied by everybody. It's a very, very famous text, probably most famous and most practical text. Most hard texts are the Madhyamika text, Madhyamika text. But the most kind of a practitioner's text is the Lamrim text, because I've looked through the Podong Chogle Namgyal's Lamrim. It's a really pioneer on the subject. But later on, of course, authors like Tsongkhapa became much more famous. Then we think Lamrim is all to do with Tsongkhapa. No, before Tsongkhapa, the Lamrim existed. Lamrim means graduate path to enlightenment. So the term was coined by Atisha, and so they are all really related. Yeah. So those are the 18 texts. So it's good that we are able to at least identify these 18 traditional textbooks that they study to become Lopen and Kempo, and some may not have studied all of these, but they are depending to the speed of how the teachings are taught. For instance, when Kempo Kedrup taught us the Uttaratantra, he taught us in 3 weeks. He taught the whole text 3 weeks, but he gave lesson every day. So that's whereas if you study, about 10 or 12 verses each night over 1 week, once a week, that's why we are spending time. But in the monastery, they memorize the text and then hear the commentary and then debate whole afternoon and analyze. So that's how they spend. A lot of them would all these 18 texts would call at least about 15, 20 years, depending to how they work. Okay, so that's what I said. We will introduce you the 18 textbooks. So that's that. Now we're going back to our text, which is the Uttaratantra, which technically belongs to the perfection wisdom, Paramita text. And so we are coming to the last section of this, which is the chapter 5, discussing the benefit. And the benefit itself is very hard to fathom. So that is expressed in verse 377. It says, since Buddha nature, so it actually lists the four: the Buddha nature, which is the fourth Vajra point, and Buddha's enlightenment, that's the fifth Vajra point, Buddha's quality, the sixth Vajra point, and the activities of the Buddha, that's the seventh Vajra point. So therefore, first, second, third Vajra point are excluded. Buddha Dharma Sangha is excluded, but Buddha nature, the enlightenment, qualities, and activities. These four are considered to be very hard to fathom. It says here that since Buddha nature, because Buddha nature means everybody, every sentient being have the intrinsic nature of their mind and their thing is Buddha. They all have the intrinsic good quality remain dominant in all sentient beings. Most people don't know that. They don't see people having Buddha nature. They think they see their faults, they see their karma, and they just reject each other outright. If they see some faults and flaws, they think that's it. They don't have nothing to do with it. So that shows how Buddha nature is very difficult to fathom, because people don't associate Buddha nature with people. They think Buddha nature is some enlightened qualities. So the Buddha nature is not fathomed by most people. But those of us who have heard and believe in this, we know everybody has Buddha nature. And with this in mind, we there have a saving grace, so not to lump people with their karma or faults and then disregard them outright. So that's a really, if you know the Buddha nature and its existence in all sentient beings, we have a totally different way of handling difficulties, and not telling the mango is not right because outside it is not. So all sentient beings have unfathomable qualities of Buddha nature. So that's the first one. And Buddha's enlightenment, the enlightenment of the Buddha is very difficult to fathom. People don't even know what is enlightenment, how and the qualities of Buddha's Buddhahood and enlightened activities. These four: Buddha nature, enlightenment, qualities, and activities are very difficult to fathom. They are not fathomable even by purified beings. Even people who have developed spiritually, they still do not know about the prevalence of Buddha nature in every sentient being. They may think they are great. They may think some are great, but they have no regard that others have Buddha nature. In quite a lot of religious tradition, they don't have even. I don't know whether maybe some Buddhist tradition don't even think the existence of Buddha nature, for instance. So it's not even mentioned. But it is therefore an exclusive domain of the experience of the leaders. So this means it's only the bodhisattvas dwelling in the 10th bhumi and above. They know all sentient beings have Buddha nature. And we are getting to hear the knowledge of the bodhisattva dwelling on the 10th bhumi, such as any bodhisattva like Maitreya, and Asanga and others who reach very great height, and they know that all sentient beings have Buddha nature. And of course, they didn't coin it, they didn't invent it. They quoted 7 Mahayana Sutras, in which it talks very exclusively about the existence of Buddha nature and what they are. So it's only the Mahayana bodhisattvas have told the existence of Buddha nature in all sentient beings. And therefore we have the, I suppose, out of our devotion and faith, believe in the teachings of the Mahayanas. Therefore we are so much now converted. Oh, everybody got Buddha nature. Oh, we better treat each other with a little bit of gentleness. So straight away it cautions us not to reject and dismiss each other with small karma and difficulties, and no matter how difficult sentient beings are, but we still think they all have Buddha nature. These are just temporary obscuration they are grappling with, but actually they too have Buddha nature. So of course, 10th bhumi dwelling bodhisattvas, they know that. It's their domain. It says here, there are activities Buddhas are exclusive domain of the experience of the leaders. These are bodhisattvas. They are the bodhisattva leaders. They know existence of the Buddha nature and all sentient beings. They also know the enlightenment of the Buddha. They know the qualities. They know the enlightened activities. We've been discussing all these things, and therefore we are somewhat inspired by these four, and therefore while we may not have first-hand experience, but we are now sort of somewhat transformed by the blessings of the teaching, and believe in the words of the Mahayana Sutras that we are also able to rejoicingly see is all sentient beings with the Buddha nature, the enlightenment, the qualities of the Buddha, and look at the one person becoming enlightened. You look at the qualities, incredible, and the Buddha activities. So they are not fathomed even by other purified beings. So that's talking about how difficult it is to fathom the existence of Buddha nature and the qualities of the enlightenment and the activities of Buddha and so on. So that's the verse number 377. And then, so therefore, if it's very difficult to fathom, but those who do fathom a little bit, it has huge benefit by having heard this text, study of the Mahayana Uttaratantra Shastra, it will have lots of benefit. He says, the intelligent ones who trust in the domain of the victors will become container of the multitude of Buddha qualities. Yeah. So those sentient beings, even though it's difficult to fathom these four topics, unless they have some amazing stock of merit, but those who are intelligent ones, those who know who to listen to, believe in the text of the 7 Mahayana Sutras, which were quoted, and they're intelligent enough not to doubt, and they trust in the domain of the victors. Domain of the victor refers to enlightened ones. Enlightened ones actually do not tell untrue things. They tell what is true. They tell in order to benefit and inspire sentient beings. Will become container of the multitude of Buddha qualities. We also become somewhat the suitable vessel, because we heard it, and we're believing in that, and we are somewhat increasing our devotion and faith, not only to the Buddha, the qualities, activities, and Buddha nature, but even towards sentient beings. We see, they too have deeply impregnated by the Buddha nature. It's just questions whether their life is fortunate to be cultivating the Buddha nature, or simply lying idle with the Buddha nature without being nurturing it. But beside that difference, all sentient beings are equally filled with the intrinsic Buddha nature. So that's why we become container of the multitude of Buddha. Sooner or later, we starting to remember. Container means, if container holds the contents, isn't it? If you don't have the container, which is faith, then it wouldn't hold. It's a leaking vase. It wouldn't hold. We remember that all beings, sentient beings, have Buddha nature. We believe in that. Then we become container of not only Buddha nature, but multitude of qualities that came from nurturing the Buddha nature. Then one become fully enlightened and have the qualities and have the activities and the three kayas and various things we discuss in great length. Being delighted by inconceivable qualities, we become delighted. We become inspired. When we hear the Buddha nature and the qualities of Buddha and his enlightened activities, his 32 major marks, how each of the 32 major marks, we list all the 32 major marks, 80 minor marks, how each of them are a result of what particular good merit they have performed in many lives before, then we become delighted by the quality. We become inspired. Our mind is somewhat softened and blessed and positivized. They suppress the virtue of all sentient beings. Those who become container of these, container of the benefit of having heard, and not only having heard, but reflecting, thinking along those lines, and then meditating on them. When you do that, these qualities will suppress the virtues of all sentient beings. What kind of virtues of all sentient beings? Virtues of generosity. And sentient beings do lots of good things. Virtues of generosity, they observe a lot of discipline, they do lots of things. Even those actually conventional virtues sentient beings practice are suppressed by those who have heard the existence of Buddha nature like no comparison. So that's the briefly explaining the benefits of having heard and remember and bless and believe in the four topics. These four topics, four topics: the Buddha nature, the enlightenment, qualities, and activities of the Buddha. And having heard that, they suppress the virtues of all sentient beings. So now it's going to elaborate a little bit how it suppresses specific qualities. We'll firstly talk about how it suppresses the merit derived from generosity, and then also it talks about how it suppresses the merit derived from self-discipline, and also then it also suppresses the merit derived from meditative concentration. Yeah, even ordinary conventional meditative concentration, people who don't have bodhicitta or Buddha nature but still meditate, they have huge jhanas. Lots of monastics practice lots of meditation. They stay solitude, they fast, they almost don't resort gross food. They can really do lots of advanced meditations. But even those such ascetic meditation practices are nothing in comparison to the benefit by hearing and believing in the merit of the Buddha nature and associated these four topics. So these are going to be discussed. The first one is how it suppresses the merit derived from generosity. It says, one who having heard just one word on this, Now we have heard many words, We heard all the 9 examples of the Buddha nature, and we heard each of the 9 analogies corresponding to beginner practitioners to all the advanced Buddha practitioners. How each of the 9 analogies suppresses 9 different afflictions. Ordinary and sentient beings, gross afflictions, to the meditatives, jhanic obscurations, and so on. How the Sravakas, the Partakas, various feeling of attachment to the nirvana is suppressed by this realization. So we went through all of that. So, having heard just one word on this meaning, on this Buddha nature, and the related 4 topics, this and cultivates faith in this will attain greater virtue than one who has strived to attain enlightenment, offers golden realms adorned with jewels. So it's talking about how it will impart the great many qualities, benefit, golden realms adorned with jewels. It's talking about using the idea that it offers so much meritorious qualities, golden realms adorned with jewels, equal in number to all the atoms the Buddha feels through the Dharma King daily. So it's saying that those who are able to believe and have developed the practice, their devotion towards the enlightened ones, such that they will be able to do so much generous offerings. So even if people make such generous offerings that actually fills the Buddha fields with an incredible multitude of jewels and daily, even those such incredible array of offerings that we were to display is not comparable to the merit there is in believing the existence of the Buddha nature in sentient beings. How? Because maybe if these kind of beautiful offerings are displayed, maybe a whole stadium is full of these jewels, but we have to go there to say, wow. But when you practice the Buddha nature, wherever you are sentient being, you are standing in front of future Buddha. So therefore you don't have to go to get inside the stadium. every corner of the world, you'll find sentient beings, and you are looking at a Buddha in future, a would-be Buddha. And your mind, your purity of mind. So therefore, no matter how much ostentatious, how much elaborate material offerings we display, a huge party, you can throw a huge party like big as a big woolly, all of that, gold and riches, even these will feel, people might say, wow, but that will be just for some physical things, some enjoyment for the senses. But if you are able to remember this person too has Buddha nature, it's straight away the merit of remembering that surpasses any amount of generosity you can have. So it's talking about the having heard the existence of Buddha nature, your whole perception of every sentient being is changed, and you never mind the temporary obscuration they may show. Like the analogy given, like a lady who's pregnant, the expectant mother is carrying a would-be future king, So therefore, we don't mind how she looks, but what she's carrying is a future king. Likewise, we don't say, oh, you're tall, your body's lost the shape, go away. We don't say, oh, she's carrying the future king. So we see all sentient beings, though they look a little bit difficult, but they are all impregnated with the Buddha nature. Because of that, we do not judge the form or the behavior of the individuals. We don't lump the person with their mistakes, because we know inside they too have Buddha nature. So their dirt can be cleaned and removed because they're temporary obscuration. The quality of the Buddha nature there in them is no less than the quality of the Buddha. It's just temporary that we have to remove the sheaths and coverings. When you can think like that, then how much generosity you have to practice to match that? Incredible. You don't even know where to begin. Because that's why it says practice, one having heard about the Buddha nature and the qualities of Buddha enlightened ones and the Buddha activity. You will actually see everywhere Buddha activity. Even this small effort of our fellowship is no other than the Buddha activities. It's not a single person's activity. Nobody can do this. It's nothing. This is because if the Buddha was not enlightened, it wasn't Buddha enlightened, there's no Buddha activity. All of these Buddhist activities or good activities that we see are stemmed from the Buddha having nurtured his Buddha nature, got enlightened. So that's why we can now imagine that if even like someone like Milarepa, Milarepa his life was completely dreadful. His life was almost like a complete disaster. But until he met the Buddha activity, his life was full of terrible. But even though he was covered in shit, so to speak, shit is not too dirty in comparison but his life was completely transformed. And Angulimala, and you look at all those lives that were changed because these are all due to Buddha activity, due to Buddha qualities, due to enlightenment, due to nurturing Buddha nature. So this is what this. So we need to be inspired. It's so easy to have faith, but just easily lost, because we always have faith in people. We don't have faith in remembering the Buddha activities. Our faith should be in the qualities of Buddha and Buddhahood and Buddha activities and Buddha nature. People put faith in form of somebody who is ordinary people. They're not actually seeing the actual qualities of these 4 Vajra points. If you remember these 4 Vajra points, then your ordinary faith will be easily boosted, and I would say boosted and improved. So therefore, hearing the Buddha nature and these topics that we have been listening and studying all these months will completely boost your sense of usefulness and purposefulness. And from here onwards, how you relate the concept of faith in Buddhism is totally different. Previously, people's faith was some worshipping some high Lama because they think he's great or something. They're only worshipping people and their status and their standing. If their standing is good, they're happy. If their standing not good, they're tattered. See? Their faith is completely doomed. There are people, they think something terrible happened to their leader. They think all groups are just have lifeless. It doesn't have to do that, But because we put our faith in the 7 Vajra points, we put our faith in the Vajra points, not in standing of individuals. Buddha never said have faith in people, or even worldly gods for that matter. So this particular Mahayana Sutra deliberately highlights this so that we don't put our faith in things that are not the 7 Vajra points. So if you having heard that, you will have increasing level of your constitution of realization of what is faith. Is faith in what? Faith in Buddha activity, Buddha qualities, enlightenment, and Buddha nature when it's nurtured. So that is that one and only Buddha who achieved enlightenment, who taught the Dharma, and whose followers are the Sangha. That's the first 3 Vajra points. If we have followers in the Sanghas who are following the Dharma, it's because of that. Because of the Dharma taught by the Buddha who has the qualities and enlightened activities, and the Buddha who have achieved Buddhahood. So that shows the relevance of how the 7 Vajra points are pertinent, and therefore you will have an incredible level of faith. The next time you even before the Buddha, if you take a flower or something, completely different understanding, People taking bigger flowers because the statue is bigger, or statues made out of gold, That's really strange, isn't it? Because the building looks big, then their faith is bigger. It's strange, But we should have faith. It should be. Temple might be very small, but you think about the 7 Vajra points, particularly the last 4. Then. Even if you just have a clear Buddha image in your home, you will still sit in front of it and pray and do the meditation with a lot more high level quality of because Buddhism is not showcasing. Whoever can make big temples, whoever can make taller Buddhas, and that was the Tibetan problem, It's always whose temple is bigger, whose monastery's got higher stage, higher. This was the problem. We even have a saying, "Sangla chambai xingson, ula ninglong langsong." In Tibetan, it sounds so. He says, Zhang means the province where they built the big Maitreya temple, That's in Shigatse, Panchen Lama. Panchen Lama built this big Maitreya, and it's said to be biggest in Tibet, the Zhang Chamba Xingso meaning, they constructed Maitreya temple in Zhang. Ula Ninglong Langso. People in U, which is the district, had a problem in their mind. They became jealous. So people in the U become jealous in what they did in Zhang. So, see, this is spiritual materialism, Talking about size and height and material of the images, but not, of course, here. So people make, even Anatta Pindika made the whole building of the Sangha in Sravasti, of course, very good. But then you can rejoice his generosity even more, because he was honoring the Buddha activity, Buddha qualities, He wasn't showing off his measure of generosity materially, He completely have no sense of ownership to what he gave. It wasn't the purpose, So that's why there's a lot of understanding there. And then the second is it suppresses the merit derived from pure conduct. Yeah. Lots of people observe amazing conduct. They live almost as by the book, They're very faithful to the books. But most of the people's disciplines, prohibitive or prescriptive or benevolent, whichever it is, however it is by the book they observe, they always have this sense of feeling, I'm better than him, I'm more pure than him, oh, he's not as good as what the book says, he's such a shame on us. People use each other's moral conduct as to judge, to compete, to look down each other, and like that. But here one who knows about the 7 Vajra points, particularly last 4, the merit of doing that will not make the person engage in such pseudo-discipline. It says, one who having heard just one word on this, meaning these Vajra points, here these 4 Vajra points, and cultivates faith in this, because here the word singular is used, but because all the 4 Vajra points as one, okay? But doesn't mean just one of the 4. All of them is collectively called this. But otherwise it looks like you have to translate it in plural, because you have to say, one who having heard just one word on these, maybe the 4 Vajra points, because correctly speaking, it's referred to as 4 Vajra points. On these 4 Vajra points, and cultivate faith in them will attain. So in them, I think better, them will attain greater virtue than the intelligent one who conduct himself by longing for highest enlightenment, effortless guards the right conduct of body, speech, mind, even for many eons. Yeah. So even people persevere and practice a lot of discipline, maybe asceticism, because right conduct of body means they fast, they live in very what you call solitary, hermitages. They don't indulge in food, and so they really take bare minimum, and they verbally probably observe silence. They observe very strict disciplines, even if they did eons such pure vows. There's lots of pure vow practitioners. If you look at some Indian religious, amazing. They with their devotion and how they will go by the books, live by the books, is incredible. And we're not saying there are no virtues. They have huge virtues. That's what they bhakti yoga they call devotion. Devotion to their God is so strong. They will do all of these various things, wanting to become one with God or whatever level of enlightenment they think. What is saying, Asanga is saying, is that the one who have heard the merit of the Buddha activity, Buddha qualities, and Buddha nature and enlightenment, and then he or she wears this attitude and looks to each other, all sentient beings, as a would-be future Buddha. When they do this surpasses any kind of asceticism, any kind of discipline that they may otherwise observe conventionally. That this is not to look down on the discipline of other people. It's saying the benefit of hearing and believing in the Buddha nature is such a higher virtue, because then you don't have to see a disciplined monk to get inspired by. You can see a person who's completely, he looks like he's got a lot of faults, his life is not good, nobody's have any good to say the person. Still we say, this too has Buddha nature. And then we straight away drop our righteous or very negative and critical views on them, and then that conduct, it changes our own attitude towards them. Maybe you're so angry at someone, you still think you should be justified to be angry. You're still trying to make other people angry to him because you're angry with them. You see what I mean? But moment you have understood the virtue of the Buddha nature that exists in certain beings, that it's just sooner or later they too, if we are skillful, if they met with the right cause and condition, they'll change. Milarepa didn't change very quickly, It's killing 18 people would have taken quite a lot of time. But slowly he did change, Why? Because Marpa, someone like Marpa, would not give up on him. Others wouldn't even accept him as student. Others wouldn't accept him as student. But someone like Marpa would have foreseen his potential. He has Buddha nature, so he's misunderstood, and I will recruit him. I adopt him. Likewise. So what does it mean is we too have to think of each other in a kindly manner, not just judge the book by its cover, so to speak, and saying, oh, this too is a person who has Buddha nature, so I shouldn't be too judgmental, too negative, and too aggressive. And then we straight away change our own discipline, our own attitude, our physical attitude, or our verbal or mental attitude, the physical behavior, or way we speak to them or about them. We straight away change because you never know. It says to criticize bodhisattva is terrible cause of being born in hell realm. So every single sentient being is a would-be bodhisattva. It's just question is whether they have joined the club or not. If they join the club and then they just even if it's only one day, only 3 weeks, he's still already a bodhisattva in the training bodhisattva. So we must be careful. We become more mindful about not criticizing anybody because they too have Buddha nature, and so on and so forth. So you can see how remembering and knowing and reflecting and having faith that their Buddha nature can be nurtured if we are skillful. You can see they're kind, they're patient. They may be not kind to this person, but there are lots of times they're kind. You wouldn't believe. We only spotted the person when he's not kind or maybe aggressive, but you wouldn't believe his loss of his behavior there was because he's been practicing kindness most of the time. Most people who are stressed are because they've been doing so much good work, poor thing. Oh, the bodhisattvas are courageous ones who, in spite of their brink of breaking their back, they just revive themselves, got up and see, we must see someone no matter how bad they look like. It's because they've been trying so hard to do good. They've been patient all those months, all those weeks, all those years. Think of that, and therefore we're going to practice a lot more kindness, because kindness surpasses all discipline. What's the point of being disciplined? Who cares if you don't drink, you don't smoke? What is that? If you're not kind to other sentient beings. So this is about how Buddha nature enables us straight away to show kindness. That's why it suppresses means surpasses the merit of observing pseudo-moral discipline. It is not saying it will surpass other discipline, but pseudo-moral discipline, materialistic, kind of pseudo, worldly kind of Dharma, worldly Dharma discipline. And the next one, 381, is it suppresses the merit derived from meditative concentration. So one who, having heard just one word on these on this, and cultivates faith in this or on these, will attain greater virtue than one whose merit derived from meditative concentration. Meditative concentration, they refer to worldly meditative concentration. People who do lots of amazing samadhi to the extent of reaching the 8 or 9 meditative states of the desire realm, as well as form realm and formless realm. No matter how much meditative concentration they can, but this can extinguish fire of affliction 3 realms and attain divine state of Brahma's abode, even if they practice it for a purpose to accomplish supreme state of immutable enlightenment. Even if they did that, the merit of remembering the Buddha activities, Buddha qualities, the Buddha nature, and the quality of Buddhahood. When you really have faith in them, that's why the Mahayana people are very, very competent, and they always say it's Maha, because their heart is so big in the existence that all sentient beings are domain of our practice of bodhicitta. Every single sentient beings have Buddha nature. Just question is whether they have good fortune to be nurtured depending to their present life situation. Most sentient beings don't, poor thing. And because they don't doesn't mean we should reject them outright. Because their present life situation has to do the time, so to speak, because of the severity of the past life's karma, they may not look really apt, or they may not look really at all there, but nevertheless, they too have all the same Buddha nature as we ourselves at church, nurturing and cherishing and practicing. So with this attitude, we totally, give away with the wrong view towards each other sentient beings. Whether those people reach the state of the divine state of Brahma's abode. This is the Brahmas, the four Brahmaviras. Brahmaviras are the Brahma and Indra. They live in very amazing divine state. Brahma Viharas are four, yeah? Brahma Viharas. They're talking about here the divine state of abode. Divine state of Brahma's abode. They refer to Brahma Vihara. So they are what you call infinite loving kindness state of Brahma's Vihara, Brahma's mental state. Brahma has loving kindness towards all sentient beings. But Brahma does not know all sentient beings have Buddha nature. Brahma has a great compassion to all sentient beings, languishing and suffering, but he doesn't have the same. He doesn't have the same perception that all sentient beings got Buddha nature. So this is the difference. That's what they're talking about. Even if they're able to reach such a height of a worldly meditative concentration, and if they practice with great, but still it will not match the merit of having faith, and having heard and cultivate faith in the four what do you call the Vajra points, the four last Vajra points, the Buddha nature, Buddhahood, qualities and activities. If people believe in these four, it surpasses even the qualities of such meditative states that are equal to the state of Brahma's abode. So what does this mean is that we should therefore rejoice. We should therefore make this useful. Of course you can practice loving kindness through somebody. Practicing loving kindness through someone is that seeing that may they have happiness, the cause of happiness. I can give them food if they're hungry, give them clothes. That's just first aid. But that's actually helping them to get, when they're hungry, they get fed, and they're thirsty, get to quench the thirst. When they're cold, they get a blanket. But that's just a first aid type of thing. But here, when you see as sentient beings, you don't just give them food when they're hungry, you still do them respect. They all also have Buddha nature. On top of that, you give them food and give the battle again. Completely different, This is what we're talking about. That's to be able to do that. We have to have a fairly good comprehension and realization to stay in this state of mind, isn't it? This state of mind. It's quite a pure perception, really. Everybody got Buddha nature. Please don't think like that. When you can do that. Of course you can still practice generosity, patience, whatever, but you don't practice patience because it's hard on you and he's really aggressive, he's making fool of himself. But he actually has Buddha nature on top of that. So this is what we're talking about here. So you need to upgrade. You need to upgrade your perception of someone, not because you are good and they are rude and you practice patience, let them do whatever they like to me. But no, they still have Buddha nature. If I practice patience, this will nurture their Buddha nature. If they become too exposed to many aggressive people by the aggression, then they never get to nurture their Buddha nature. Then it's become like the seed in the jar never got into the soil. Now, if I practice not only tolerance to them, and then also did it out of respect to them, maybe this will they will inspire their Buddha nature. So the whole attitude is completely many levels higher, many levels higher or more effective. You see, the attitude is different. Because otherwise people, I'll give him something so that he can go away, to get rid of him, so that you can give him so that he can get away and you don't have to deal with another one. You see? Not that kind of attitude. No, you give to them, but with the attitude that this person needs other generous people to be exposed so that they will be nurtured, that they too have Buddha nature. You know? So if he did that, I'm sure you will look at every sentient being differently, no matter how difficult they may be, no matter how generous we are, no matter how patient we are, no matter how amazing we are, but still it's not what we do, but who they are. So who they are. We keep seeing them absent of Buddha nature. We keep seeing them as deluded. And this, when you know this, when you remember this, for the Vajrayana, it's amazingly important, particularly. Why Vajrayana has this important practice of seeing all as Buddhas? It's a really kind of it's a carryover from this understanding that all beings have Buddha nature. So then you don't think everybody's Buddha nature, not because you think, because they are. The problem is we can't see what they are. We just imagine what they are, and we think that's what they are. We don't see actually what they really are. So we can see why this chapter, why this very, very short chapter, why it's highlighting that all the last basically 12 months we've been going over these texts. Now we realize, the benefit, why we're sticking together so like this is because we realize that we have to look at every sentient being with a completely different level of intelligence that we have not been operating before. We haven't used that before. We haven't used that level of consciousness. And now we can use this because we've heard the word, we cultivate the faith in the qualities of Buddha Dharma, Buddha nature, Buddha activities, and so on. As a result of that, we have a totally different way of looking at things. So that's why this merit of listening to this is indeed great blessings. And this is stated in one sutra, one particular sutra. He says, these verses we have just covered, these 4 verses we have covered are versified meaning of a particular sutra. Ishinawa Gyembendo means sutra that is the ornament to the illumination of wisdom. Sutra that is the ornamentation to the illumination of wisdom. Yeah, it comes from that. So this means this very chapter, which is talking benefit, is not Asanga's idea. This also came from the sutra. This came from the specific sutra. Ishinawa Gyembendo. So it's Buddha himself has stated very clearly, those who have heard and believe and have faith in the Buddha nature and the Buddhahood and qualities and Buddha activities, then they will accrue so much benefit, because your merit of generosity, your merit of discipline, your merit of various other qualities, even meditative concentration. Maybe you meditate 4 or 5 hours each day, but you think it's great, You think you're fulfilling your commitment. That's good. But wait until you have this perception that all sentient beings have Buddha nature. And then you start, then it's almost like your meditative concentration happening all the time. Even when you're not meditating, you're always being able to see the Buddha in everyone. Not only when you're sitting in front of Buddha image, but you're always in front of sentient being who is a Buddha, who's a Buddha in disguise, so to speak. So that is the main point with that. Okay, so we'll stop there tonight, and I will read the remainder of the root text of part of the oral transmission for a little while. Oh, Namaya Lada, Drugunda, the Megan, and Rogun, Tam Jago, Dagi, Judan, Jedi, and Doa Meja, Chin, Nebanam, Zango, Zozo, Tijan Sanji, La, Dena Zamba, Nazo Jun, Toja, Dena de la Namedo, Jetan, and Jetom, the Veg, and Beba Meba, Jenla, the Vara, Tijin Tuban, and Bemeja, the Bane, Shinjitun, the Seba, you can get Jazol, so Netherland, Chidano, Sambo, Ranya, the Yendo Washington, Kamenya Mons. In the Dejatonia, Nega Shebraja, Chidajan, and Chidajanian, and Jinjan number, Namdo Missions of Chidanangi, Mineta, the Indian Shibas, Shin and Religion, number of Dome, so Meja, Chidana, Nema, Jose Meja, Nawa, make by Meja, Miguel Lamler, there by Sumeden to me by Kalash Dama, Toya de me, the Jesam Jesangela, Toya de Chizale Jevago, Chizale Jevago, Domisala Den, and Pedan Dendo, the Yuzobe Sangela, Damdo Mela Denem, and Rege Zawana, Maluban and Bewan, Bezome by Chevanga, Cheba Tome Devan, and Dujetesum Jeveje, Penam Gun and Demba, Tangakandu Bego Bode, Gebara to Denjeba, Donde Nimin, Tegoba Dembanya, Toba Legend Sheba, Nawa Jazin Dinjeba, London Yudo, Sanje, Jokonan Juba, Tijin Benjo Jazin, Sunya Lasso Tedane, Namgo Juba, Telane, Teodon Ebroso. Dunda Zondan Jabata, Judan, Yidrawata, Tuzun Guyasawa, Tujidania Tabani, Bezogun Rabjeva, number of one maybe. Timin Benju Jazin, Sunyan Sharwala Zoba, Bezoshiva Tanjed, Tometun and Denzik, Rajidan and Jodun, Ben Jazz Zudo, Dina Negadan, and Denvalas on Namgo, Namgun, Damba Jazandra, Beba Mebara Juba, Kaji Jazin Adan Jemeda, Zani Renji, Ijin, Daniel Namgasa, Beme Shendon Zed, Nanjoba, Renje Lavan Jagent, Renje Lavana Yendamba, the Lepundum, the Lying Arada, Jabda Medan, Jensen John, and Tayandova, City, Sezabad, Sayemeba, Nene, Mejoba, Juba number of the Domba, Nijin, the Rodova, Namdar, and Jenton, Javanam Yesun, the Chaja Hindu, the Yigame, Gunan, Namgata, Captain Zumeta Pani, Sajan Dreva, Chiyanama. Number Gundu Shijuban, Sanji Sayan, Tabara, Tabamendu, and Semla Sanji Donveju, Tedalan, Tedasan Mendobe, Tebewamba, Dembani, Gawa, Jedan, Jibada, Sanji Sun, Jedan, Jajin, Hindu, Tobani, Chuji, Gui, Genjeda, the Yendun de Memeba, Jimin Game, Chugala, Seba Chizinejeba, Dombalan, Dombala Zonzabaju, Bendenam, Dubai, Tunin, Rembaya, Chima Chundeba, Bombegun, Joba, Sanji Sunyan, Tao, the Yanda, Mendela, Lying Agentum, Tunje, Banda Meda, Jinjan, Dumbe, Sao Bomin, Sanji, the member Jive, Nimesu, Mamajam,
Nebrameka Tendame, Danishin de Gila, Yeneme, Jua de Jua Tendra, Jua Tendra, and Medona, Nagadan and Dava, Yemet and Dava, Jigdenji Delendeba, and Punzo Maluba, Nebalan and Dembeje, Sayingo Tadanda, Sanji, Chanjula Den, Jigden de Velam Jeje, Gavelam, Samdenda, Seme Bala Sumet, Tikbajum, Yulamet, Denju, Gonjo, Giri, Dembaya, Wala, Tijin, the Shiva. Okay, so that's all we have. Please, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Rinpoche. Wonderful as usual. Thank you.
Welcome, thank you. So we're going to do the dedication of merits. As you know, Vajra Herenda Mahayana whatever merera hevega mehobe begazelaza toda Mahayana jeje kareje manju shenewode azamandra badadela following all the example aja de de mere mede zelembo de juda tebe na ya danzo veras bemo medeng frele vedade general. Thank you, everyone.